All characters and events in this story are the fruit of my imagination. If something seems like reality, it's just the stars aligning that way. Please don't judge too harshly. We are 100% against cheating, alcohol, anything prohibited, and any violation of the law. Write in the comments what city you are from and where you listen to this audio version. Share the vibe. Don't forget to like, tell your life story, and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with new exciting stories. Ethan Clark woke to the sound of children's laughter coming from the kitchen. He lay in his wide bed, looking up at the wood-beamed ceiling, and for a second he couldn't believe that this was their home. Sunlight streamed through the large bedroom windows, reflecting off the Puget Sound that stretched out beyond. The smell of freshly brewed coffee and bacon wafted up from below, mixing with the cool morning air. Ethan stretched, his muscles feeling pleasantly heavy from his run with Zach the day before. Life seemed perfect. He turned his head to look at Madison's pillow, which was empty as it had been for the past few months. She was the first one up, even before the kids. Ethan smiled, remembering how she had gotten used to waking up early as an elementary school teacher. Now, after taking a course in venture capital and working at Tilo's Capital, her schedule was even more rigid. She's just settling in, he thought, pushing aside a slight worry. Ethan walked down the oak stairs to the kitchen. The new house was their pride and joy. Open floor plan, marble countertops, touchscreen refrigerator that Chloe loved to poke her fingers at. Zach, his 11-year-old son, sat at the counter, swinging his legs and eating peanut butter toast. Chloe, 8, was trying to build a tower out of bacon bits, giggling when they fell. "Dad," Chloe noticed him first. "Zach said that dinosaurs are still alive, but that's a lie, right?" "It's not a lie, it's a theory," Zach said indignantly, wiping his mouth with his sleeve. "I read that there might be plesiosaurs in the ocean." Ethan laughed, patting Zach on the head. "Well, if you find a plesiosaur, name it after your sister. Closaurus sounds cool." "Ugh, Dad," Chloe made a face, but her eyes were shining. Madison stood by the coffee machine, already dressed for work. A navy suit, her hair pulled back into a neat bun. Her laptop was open on the counter, and she was typing quickly, her eyes glued to the screen. Ethan came up behind her, wrapped his arm around her waist, and kissed her neck. "Good morning, business lady," he said, waiting for her usual smile. "Morning," she replied, not looking up from the screen. "Zach, don't get your shirt dirty. You have to go to school in an hour." Ethan pulled back, feeling a slight chill from her tone. He poured himself coffee from the pot, trying not to dwell on it. Madison had always been organized, but ever since she dropped out of school and taken courses to work at a venture capital firm, she seemed different. More abrupt, more distant. "This is temporary," he told himself, stirring his sugar. "Dad, are you picking us up today?" Zach asked, shoving another piece of toast into his mouth. "Yeah, champ. I'll swing by after work to pick you up. Chloe, don't forget about your dinosaur project, okay? I've already learned everything." Chloe straightened up proudly. "A Tyrannosaurus could eat a whole cow at once." "Cool," Ethan winked. "Maybe you could draw it on the board." Madison closed her laptop with a soft click. "Ethan, I'm leaving early. We have a pitch session with a new startup. Don't forget, Chloe has gymnastics practice at 5. "Got it," Ethan nodded. "And what time will you be there? Maybe we can order pizza and all sit together." She paused, adjusting her bag on her shoulder. "I'm not sure. It depends on how the day goes. I'll probably be late." Ethan nodded, hiding his disappointment. "Okay, keep us posted." Madison walked up to the kids, kissed Zach on the top of the head, then Chloe. "Behave, okay? Zach, don't argue with the teacher like last time." "I didn't argue, I just asked," Zach said indignantly. She smiled, but it was a strained smile. She walked up to Ethan and touched his arm lightly. "See you later," she said, and walked out, slamming the door. Ethan watched her through the window until her black sedan disappeared around the corner. Something about her haste, her short "see you later," pricked him. He shook his head. pushing the thought away. Work. Just work. Dad, why are you frozen? Chloe poked him with a spoon. Let's play questions. Yeah, right, Ethan smiled, sitting down next to him. Who's first? Zach asked. Okay, Zach narrowed his eyes. If you were a superhero, who would you be? Ethan thought, sipping his coffee. Spider-Man, I guess. Climbing walls is cool. How about you? Iron Man, Zach puffed out his chest. He's got armor and missiles. And I'm Wanda. Chloe jumped up. She does all kinds of magic, PFFT. They laughed, and for a moment everything was like before. A warm morning, children, jokes. But deep down, Ethan felt something was missing. Madison. Her laughter, her warmth. He shook the thought away, standing up. Okay, heroes, get ready. It's time for school. After dropping Zach and Chloe off at school, Ethan drove to his office in downtown Seattle. His company, TechWave, made software for logistics, and Ethan was one of the lead engineers. 6 months earlier, he'd won a startup competition with an idea for a platform that automated supply chains. The prize money and a deal with investors had turned their lives upside down. A new house, a new car, a new job for Madison. Ethan had been happy, but now, sitting in traffic and a drizzle, he found himself thinking that happiness was slipping away. His colleague Dan met him at the office, with his usual mug of coffee in hand. Hey, Clark, why are you so gloomy? Are you tired of the new house yet? No, it's cool. Ethan forced himself to smile as he sat down at the table. It's just this morning. Madison's up to her ears at work again. Oh, a venture fund, huh? Dan whistled. She's a big shot now, probably hanging out with millionaires. Something like that. Ethan opened his laptop, not wanting to pursue the topic further. What's going on with our project? Everything is going according to plan. Dan plopped down in the chair next to him. But the boss wants you to present a new feature next week. Can you handle it? No problem, Ethan nodded, though his mind was elsewhere. He remembered how Madison used to come to his presentations, sit in the front row, wink at him when he was nervous. Now she didn't even ask about his work. The day passed in the usual bustle: code, meetings, discussions. Ethan loved his job, but today everything seemed gray. He found himself checking his phone, hoping for a text from Madison. Nothing. Just a reminder from school about a parent-teacher conference and a photo from Chloe of her T-Rex drawing. At 5, Ethan picked up the kids from school and drove Chloe to gymnastics. Zach sat in the back seat, playing on his phone. Dad, is Mom coming home today? He asked suddenly. I don't know, son. Ethan looked at him in the rearview mirror. She's busy, but she'll try. She's always busy, Zach muttered, not looking up from the screen. Ethan gripped the steering wheel a little tighter. He wanted to say something encouraging, but the words stuck. Instead, he turned on the radio, and they drove to the pop tune, each lost in their own thoughts. At home, Ethan made macaroni and cheese, the kids' favorite. They ate at the big table, chatting about school. Chloe told him about her friend dropping a tray in the cafeteria, and Zach bragged about scoring a goal in the gym. Ethan laughed. Buthai's gaze kept falling on Madison's empty seat. At 9 p.m., when the kids were already brushing their teeth, Ethan texted Madison. Are you coming soon? The kids are bored. She replied 10 minutes later. Going to be late. Pizza tomorrow. Good night. Ethan stared at the screen, feeling something inside him break. He put the kids to bed, read a book about dinosaurs to Chloe, and then sat in the living room with a bottle of beer. The TV was off, and the house was silent except for the sound of the waves outside the window. Ethan stood at the stove, stirring spaghetti sauce, while Zach and Chloe raced around the living room, playing tag. The house smelled of garlic and tomatoes, and an old rock ballad was playing softly on the speakers, the kind Madison liked in the evenings. It was Wednesday, and Ethan had decided to have dinner early, hoping to catch his wife before her next date. He glanced at his watch. 6 p.m. Madison had promised to be home by 7. Dad, I'm hungry. Zach burst into the kitchen, nearly knocking over the salad bowl. His blonde hair was sticking out in all directions from the game. Hang in there, champ. Ethan picked up the bowl. Help me set the table. Where's Chloe? She's drawing something, Zach shrugged, grabbing the plates. She's drawing about dinosaurs again. Ethan smiled. Chloe had been obsessed with dinosaurs ever since the teacher assigned the project. He called toward the living room. Chloe, come here, let's eat. I'm coming, she said, and a minute later she appeared with a piece of paper with a green velociraptor on it. Dad, look, I drew Rex. He's eating pizza. Cool, Ethan sat down, looking at the drawing. Maybe we can order pizza on Friday too, with anchovies like Mom likes. Ugh, anchovies stink, Chloe wrinkled her nose. That's my mom's taste, Ethan laughed, but it was strained. He remembered Madison ordering pizza with anchovies and him grumbling that it smelled like fish. Now he would eat 10 of those pizzas just to have her home. Zach put the plates on the table and asked, Dad, is Mom definitely coming today? She didn't come yesterday. Ethan froze, holding the spoon with the sauce. She's trying, Zach. She's got a new job, a lot to do. But she promised to play chess with me, Zach frowned, looking at the floor. Ethan swallowed, feeling a twinge of guilt, even though it wasn't his fault. I'll talk to her, okay? In the meantime, let's play after dinner. You versus me and Chloe. I can't play chess. Chloe plopped down on a chair. I'd rather root for Rex. They laughed, and Ethan set the pot down. He tried to keep the mood light, but tension was building inside. Madison had been skipping dinners for 3 weeks now, citing networking and pitch sessions. He'd supported her when she dropped out of school, paid for her venture capital courses, cheered when she got a job at Tilo's Capital. But now her absences were the norm, and it was starting to piss him off. At 7:15, Madison still hadn't shown up. Ethan dialed her number. After 3 rings, she answered. Ethan, I'm in a meeting. Her voice was sharp. Voices and the clink of glasses could be heard in the background. What happened? Nothing. Ethan tried to speak calmly. It's just that dinner's ready. The kids are waiting. Oh shit, she sighed. I don't have time. My team and I are discussing the startup. It's important. Let's eat something here. Ethan squeezed the phone. You promised Zach chess. He'll be upset. I know. Her tone softened, but not for long. Play with him, okay? I'll be there tomorrow. Okay, Ethan exhaled. How long until you get here? I don't know, it's late. She paused. Don't wait, go to bed. Good night. She hung up before he could answer. Ethan stared at the screen, feeling anger and hurt mingle. He walked back to the table where Zach and Chloe were already eating spaghetti, getting sauce all over themselves. Mom's not coming? Chloe looked at him with big eyes. Not today, sweetheart. Ethan sat up, forcing a smile. But we'll manage, right? Who wants more? Zach twirled his fork silently, not looking up. Ethan could tell his son was angry, but he didn't want to show it. He reached out and squeezed his shoulder. Hey, chess after dinner. I'm going to smash you. Dream on, Dad. Zach smiled weakly, but the mood was ruined. Dinner was quiet. Ethan listened to Chloe chatter, nodding, joking, but his mind was elsewhere. He cleared the dishes, put the kids to bed, and sat in the living room with his laptop, trying to distract himself with work. But instead of coding, he opened the Tilo's Capital website, looking at a photo of the team. Madison was there, dressed in a sharp suit, smiling confidently. Next to her was her boss, Travis Monroe, tall, perfectly coiffed, and smug. Ethan felt a twinge of irritation. Charismatic, Madison had once described him. Why did that word stick with him so much? The next day at TechWave, Ethan was distracted. He sat in a conference room, listening to Dan and 2 other colleagues discuss a new feature for their platform. Dan noticed his aloofness and nudged him with his elbow. Clark, where are you? Dan grinned. Dreaming about your startup again? No, really, Ethan leaned back in his chair. Just family matters. Oh, tell me, Dan narrowed his eyes. Is Madison making you wash the dishes again? Ethan chuckled, but without humor. She's rarely home anymore. Venture capital, all rich people partying. Really? Dan whistled. Well, that's cool. She's probably hanging out with the business sharks there. Something like that, Ethan shrugged, not wanting to go into details. Okay, what about the bugs? Dan turned his attention to his work, but Ethan caught the eye of his colleague, Mia, who was sitting across from him. She was new, but had already charmed everyone with her directness. Ethan, are you okay? She asked quietly as Dan went out to get coffee. You look like you haven't slept. It's all good, he forced himself to smile. It's just that the kids are exhausted. Yep, I believe you, Mia nodded, but her look was understanding. If anything, I'm here. My nephews are the same energizers. Thank you, Ethan nodded, feeling unexpected warmth from her words. He turned back to his laptop, but his thoughts were back to Madison. Why wasn't she calling? Why wasn't she talking about her work like she used to? At lunchtime, he went to the cafeteria, where Dan and Mia were already sitting with trays. Ethan took a sandwich and sat down with them. Come on, Clark, spill it. Dan poked him with his fork. What's with the blues? You're usually like a battery. Ethan sighed, taking a bite of his sandwich. It's just, Madison's always at work. The kids are bored, I'm bored. I don't know how to handle this. Oh man, Dan shook his head. A new job is always stressful. Give her time, she'll get used to it. Maybe so, Ethan shrugged, but there was no confidence in his voice. Have you talked to her? Mia looked at him seriously. Like, for real, without kids, without rushing. I tried, Ethan put his sandwich down. She brushes it off. Says it's just work, that's all. Mia frowned. Work is one thing, but if she's completely gone, maybe we should put the squeeze on her. Ask her what's really going on. Press, Ethan grinned. She'll kill me for this. Well, or you'll just sit there and guess, Mia shrugged, taking a sip of cola. You're an engineer, Ethan. Figure it out like a bug. Ethan looked at her, and her words suddenly hurt. Figure it out. Maybe she was right. He nodded, muttering, Okay, I'll think about it. By Friday, Ethan had decided to have a family night to bring some warmth back into the house. He ordered pizza anchovy for Madison, pepperoni for the kids. He set candles on the table and put on her favorite playlist. Zach helped lay out napkins, and Chloe drew a card for her mom with a dinosaur holding a pizza. Dad, this is going to be awesome. Chloe was jumping up and down with excitement. Mom will be happy, right? Sure, honey, Ethan said, hugging her, but his heart sank. He texted Madison, pizza at 7. Want some? She replied. I'll try. Busy, but I'll try. At 7:15, the pizza was cooling on the table. Zach was fiddling with the box. Chloe was fiddling with the card. Ethan was looking at his phone, feeling his hopes fading. At 7:30, a text came. Ethan, sorry I'm late. Big night, can't miss it. Kiss the kids. Ethan read the message twice, gripping the phone so tightly his fingers turned white. He exhaled, trying not to snap in front of the kids. Dad, Chloe looked at him, her voice shaking. Mom's not coming. Ethan crouched down, hugging her. She's really busy, honey, but we'll still have fun, right? Pizza, movies, whatever. But I wanted to go with my mom, Chloe sniffled, clutching the card to her chest. Zach stood up silently and walked into his room, slamming the door. Ethan felt everything inside him crumble. He sat down at the table, looking at the candles that were already starting to drip wax. Chloe climbed into his lap, and he hugged her, kissing the top of her head. Dad, does Mom still love us? She asked quietly. Ethan closed his eyes, fighting the lump in his throat. Of course she does, he said, though he wasn't sure anymore. She's just a little confused. We'll figure it out. He turned on a cartoon, and he and Chloe ate pizza, but it tasted like cardboard. Zach never came down. Ethan put Chloe to bed, then knocked on his son's door. Zach, can I come in? He opened the door slightly. Zach lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. "What, Dad?" "I know you're mad." Ethan sat on the edge of the bed. "Me too. But we're a team, right? We can do this." "She left us." Zach turned to the wall. "She doesn't care." "Hey, don't say that." Ethan put a hand on his shoulder. "Mom loves you. She's just busy. I'll talk to her." Zach didn't answer, and Ethan walked out, feeling helpless. He sat down on the couch, opened his phone, and texted Madison. "The kids are upset. We need to talk. When will you be there?" There was no answer. Ethan stared at the dark screen, Mia's phrase, "Deal with it like a bug," playing in his head. He decided that tomorrow he would make Madison explain herself. No more excuses. He would not let their family fall apart. Ethan sat on the living room couch. The candles he'd lit for their family dinner had long since burned out, leaving wax stains on the tablecloth. Chloe was asleep upstairs, clutching her stuffed dinosaur, and Zach was still hurt, locked in his room. Madison hadn't responded to his last text, and his phone lay dark and silent next to him. Ethan rubbed his temples, feeling fatigue and anger mingle in his chest. He didn't want to sit there and wait like some loser. He had to do something. He stood up, gathered up the pizza boxes, and carried them to the trash. As he passed the kitchen, he noticed a pile of dirty dishes in the sink. "At least I can clear these out," he thought, rolling up his sleeves. But the dishes could wait. Ethan decided to start with the laundry. The washing machine was already flashing its reminder, and Madison seemed to have forgotten what chores were. He went down to the laundry room in the basement, where the smell of detergent and damp hung heavy. The laundry basket was overflowing. Zach's t-shirts, Chloe's dresses, his own shirts. Ethan began sorting, throwing the darks in one pile, the light in another, trying not to think about the empty house upstairs. He pulled out another shirt when his hand came across something smooth and silky. Ethan frowned, pulling out a pair of black men's boxer briefs, obviously expensive, with the initials TM embroidered on the waistband. He froze, holding them in his hands. They weren't his. His briefs were plain cotton, with no embroidery. Ethan held the material closer to examine it, and the smell hit him like a slap. "Did he shit himself?" he muttered, his voice shaking with a mixture of shock and black humor. It was his habit to joke when everything was falling apart, but now the laughter was stuck in his throat. His heart pounded, his ears began to ring. TM Travis Monroe. The name popped up instantly, as if it had been waiting in the wings. Madison had mentioned it a couple of times her boss, a senior partner at Tilo's Capital. Charismatic, she'd said then, and Ethan had thought she'd gotten a little too excited about him. Now those initials, that smell, those damn pants, were there, like inescapable evidence. He sat down on the cold concrete floor of the laundry room, leaning against the washing machine. His thoughts were racing. Was this a mistake? Was it someone else with the same initials? But the image kept playing in his head. Madison coming home late, her evasive answers, her cold looks, and those networking nights that dragged on until midnight. Ethan clenched his fists, feeling anger replace disbelief. He didn't want to be the guy who rummaged through his underwear and made up conspiracy theories. But the truth was right there in front of him, black and silky. "Damn, Madison," he whispered, looking at the panties. "What are you doing?" He stood up, picked up his boxers, and stuffed them into his jeans pocket. He couldn't leave such precious evidence behind. Ethan walked back upstairs, his legs shaking. In the living room, he poured himself a whiskey from the bar he and Madison only opened on special occasions. The glass clanked on the counter as he set it down. The first sip burned his throat, but it didn't drown out the chaos in his head. Ethan pulled out his phone and opened a chat with Madison. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. What should he type? "Hey, whose underwear did I find?" "Travis Monroe's." He snorted, imagining her face. No, he wasn't going to make a scene over text. They needed to talk face to face. But first, the facts. Ethan was an engineer. He knew how to solve problems. This was just a bug that needed to be fixed. Only now the bug was in his marriage. He opened his laptop and typed Travis Monroe into the search engine. Telos Capital's website returned a photo of him, tall, mid-40s, with a perfect smile and dark hair slicked back. The caption read, "Senior Partner, EdTech Investment Expert." Ethan scrolled on, articles about his deals, photos from conferences where he was in an expensive suit, shaking hands with bigwigs. One picture showed Madison, standing next to Travis, too close, with that smile Ethan hadn't seen in months. His stomach clenched. "Bastard," he muttered, slamming the laptop shut. The clock showed midnight. Madison was still not there. Ethan finished his whiskey and decided that there was no point in waiting for her. He went up to the bedroom, hid his underwear in his desk drawer under some old papers. On Saturday morning, Ethan woke up with a headache. The sun was pouring into the bedroom, but the bed next to him was empty. He went down to the kitchen, where Chloe was already eating cereal and Zach was watching cartoons on his tablet. "Dad, you sleep like a bear," Chloe giggled, waving her spoon. "HRRR. Very funny." Ethan rubbed his eyes as he poured coffee. "Where's Mom?" "She's in the shower." Zach didn't look up from the screen. "She just got here." Ethan froze, holding his mug. She came. At 7 in the morning, he put the coffee down and went upstairs. The bathroom door was closed, and the sound of running water was coming from inside. Ethan knocked. "Madison," he called, trying to keep his voice even. "Yes." Her voice was tired but sharp. "I'm busy, Ethan." "We need to talk." He leaned against the door. "When will you come out?" "Oh my God, Ethan, I just got back." She raised her voice. "Give me 5 minutes, okay?" Ethan walked away, feeling his anger flare up again. He went back into the kitchen, sat down with the kids, and forced a smile. "Chloe, what's up with your dinosaur? Did you draw another one?" "Aha," she beamed. "Now he has wings, like a pterodactyl." "Cool," Ethan nodded, but his thoughts were on Madison. 15 minutes later, she came downstairs in a robe, her hair wet. She looked exhausted, but still beautiful. Her dark eyes, which Ethan had once adored, now seemed alien. "Good morning," she smiled at the children, sitting down at the table. "Zach, put away the tablet, eat normally." Zach rolled his eyes, but obeyed. Madison poured herself some coffee without looking at Ethan. He waited for the kids to finish eating and then said, "You guys should go upstairs and brush your teeth. I'll be right up." Chloe ran off, Zach trailing behind. Ethan turned to Madison. "Where have you been all night?" She looked up, frowning. "At work, Ethan. We had a networking event, then a discussion with investors," I wrote. "You wrote that you'd be late," he crossed his arms, "but not that you'd be back at 7 in the morning. The children were waiting for you yesterday. I was waiting." "Oh, I'm sorry I don't stay home like you," she snorted, putting her mug down. "This is my job. It's important." "More important than family?" Ethan lowered his voice so the kids wouldn't hear. "Zach locked himself in his room yesterday." Chloe was almost crying. "Did you see that?" Madison sighed, rubbing her forehead. "I know I screwed up, but it's temporary. Telos is my chance, Ethan. I can't give up." "I'm not asking you to leave." He leaned closer. "But you're not with us at all. What kind of meetings are these until the morning? Who are you with there?" Her gaze hardened. "Are you serious? You think I'm hanging out with someone? This is work, Ethan. With Travis, with the team, with the clients." "Travis," Ethan repeated the name, feeling it scrape his throat. "That charismatic boss." "Yes, my boss." She stood up, pushing her chair back. "And don't make a big deal out of it. I need to sleep. We'll talk later." She went upstairs, leaving him alone. On Saturday, Ethan drove Chloe to gymnastics and Zach to soccer practice. The kids were quieter than usual, and he tried to cheer them up by buying ice cream on the way home. But he was on edge. Talking to Madison had done nothing but make him more suspicious. He decided he needed more facts. That evening, when Madison left for another meeting, he opened his laptop again. Ethan Googled Olivia Monroe. If Travis was who he thought he was, His wife might know more. He found her profile, PR consultant, pretty, with a sharp eye. Her office was in downtown Seattle. Ethan signed up for a consultation, making up a story about pitching his startup. He wasn't sure what he'd say, but he felt like Olivia was his chance to figure it out. Before bed, he went to see Zach. His son was reading a comic book, lying on the bed. "Hey, how are you?" Ethan sat down next to him. "Normal," Zach shrugged. "Mom left again?" "Yeah," Ethan sighed. "But I'm here, right? If you want, we can go skating tomorrow." "Cool," Zach smiled weakly. "Dad, you won't fight with Mom?" Ethan squeezed his hand. "Don't worry, we'll figure this out. Sleep, champ." Ethan sat in his car in the parking lot of a glass office building in downtown Seattle. His fingers fiddled nervously with the rim of a paper bag containing a pair of black silk briefs embroidered with the initials TM. He glanced at his watch again. 2:45 p.m. He had an appointment with Olivia Monroe, Travis's wife, in 15 minutes. He'd booked the appointment under the guise of promoting his startup, but now, sitting there with the bag, he felt like an idiot. How did he even begin a conversation like that? "Hey, your husband is sleeping with my wife. Here are his briefs." He snorted, shaking his head, but his chest was clenched with anger and fear. Ethan got out of the car, tucked the bag under his jacket, and headed toward the entrance. The building was modern, glass, metal, and a sign with the name of the agency, Monroe Media. The lobby smelled of coffee and something floral. The girl at the reception, young, with bright red lipstick, smiled at him. "Mr. Clark?" she asked, glancing at the tablet. "Mrs. Monroe is expecting you. The elevator to the third floor, room 305. "Thanks," Ethan nodded, his palms sweating. In the elevator, he looked at his reflection, dark circles under his eyes, his shirt slightly wrinkled. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in 3 nights, which was true. He hadn't eaten much since finding the underwear on Friday, and the same question kept running through his head. Why, Madison? On the third floor, his secretary met him and showed him to his office. Olivia Monroe sat at a large desk, bathed in sunlight. She was beautiful, about 40, with dark hair pulled back into a low bun, a formal gray suit, but her eyes were warm and slightly tired. On the desk was a framed photo of her and Travis, smiling on some beach. Ethan swallowed, feeling the bag growing heavy under his jacket. "Mr. Clark," Olivia stood up, extending her hand. "Nice to meet you. Sit down. Tell me about your startup." Ethan shook her hand, trying not to show a tremor. "Thank you for taking the time," he said, sitting down across from her. I have a logistics platform. Automation of supply chains." "Interesting," Olivia nodded, opening her notebook. "Tell me more. What market? Competitors?" Ethan began to speak, repeating the memorized story about his startup. He had won the competition 6 months ago, and that was true, but now his voice sounded mechanical. Olivia listened, taking notes, but he noticed her gaze slid over his face, lingering on the tension in his cheekbones. "Mr. Clark," she put her pen down, "you don't look like you've come here for PR advice. Is something wrong?" Ethan froze. The moment had come, and he knew he couldn't wait. He pulled a paper bag from under his jacket and placed it on the table. "This isn't about the startup," he said, looking into her eyes. "This is about your husband." Olivia frowned, her hand hovering over the bag. "What do you mean?" Ethan tore open the bag and yanked out a pair of black briefs, tossing them on the table like he was dealing cards at a casino. The initials TM gleamed under the light like a cheap sign. "Found these beautiful hours the washing machine," he said, leaning back with a grin. "My wife, Madison, must have been working too much with your Travis at Tilo's Capital. You know what I mean?" Olivia stared at the panties, her face going white as if she'd seen a ghost, then changed to, "Is this serious?" She slowly looked up at Ethan, one eyebrow raised higher than Elbrus. "You're kidding, right?" Her voice was quiet but sharp. "No joke," Ethan snapped, crossing his arms. "Your husband is Sorostiapa, who throws his clothes around my house like it's a hostel. Are you aware of these movements of his?" What do you think? Is it possible to forgive such betrayal? Or is this the end? Like and subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss the next exciting stories. Olivia took the panties and brought them closer, as if checking. Where did you say you found this? She asked, looking away. In the laundry room Friday, Ethan leaned forward. Madison came back at 7 on Saturday, said she was at a networking event. I'm not an idiot, Olivia. She was silent, tapping her fingernail on the table. Ethan waited, feeling the silence weigh on him. Finally, she looked at him, her eyes full of anger, but not at him. I've noticed odd things, she said slowly. Travis has been different. Calling people at night, leaving without explanation. I thought it was work, but it's not work, Ethan finished for her. Madison keeps disappearing too. Always with him, with your team. I've seen pictures of them together, too close. And now these panties. Olivia pressed her lips together, her gaze sharpening. The initials TM. Ethan pointed at the bag. That's not a coincidence. You know him better than I do. She nodded, as if agreeing with something inside her. Yeah, that's his style, her voice wavered. The expensive crap he buys to look cool. Ethan snorted despite the tension. Well, he certainly showed off his cool. Olivia smiled faintly, but it quickly faded. What do you want from me, Ethan? Why did you come? I want the truth, he looked into her eyes. I don't know what they're up to, but it's destroying my family. Olivia nodded, her expression softening. Travis and I don't have kids, but I understand. I'm tired of wondering where he is and who he's with, too. Ethan felt the anger recede, replaced by a strange relief. She didn't brush him off, didn't blame him. She was in the same boat. Have you noticed anything? He asked. Anything that might confirm this? Yeah, she sighed, leaning back in her chair. A month ago, he went to a conference in Los Angeles. He came back without a single photo, without a story. He just said, everything went great. And then I found a receipt from a restaurant for two, with wine for $200. Travis doesn't drink wine with coworkers. Ethan clenched his jaw. Madison was at the conference at the time, too. Said it was for work. What are we going to do? Olivia crossed her arms, her voice growing firmer. You want to go to them and have a showdown? No, Ethan shook his head. I want to know everything. I need to be sure, and I don't want my kids to suffer any more than they already have. I agree, Olivia stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city. We need evidence, not just panties, but something that can't be disputed. I can check her phone, Ethan shrugged. Olivia turned to him. I have connections, access to his schedule. I can find out where he hangs out. Ethan nodded, feeling a spark ignite within him. Okay. Olivia returned to the table, sat down, and looked at him. Then it's a deal. We'll be smarter than them. Let's start small. I'll check his calendar. You keep an eye on Madison. If we find anything, we'll call. Coming, Ethan stood up, feeling strangely light. Here's my number, he wrote on a piece of paper from her notebook. Call me anytime. Okay, she took the paper, then held out her hand. We'll get through this, Ethan. He shook her hand, feeling the firmness of her grip. Yes, we can handle it. Ethan left the office, took the elevator, and returned to the car. Olivia had kept the bag of panties. She had insisted on keeping them until they decided what to do. Ethan let out a breath as he climbed behind the wheel, looking out at the gray Seattle sky. Rain was starting to drizzle, pounding the windshield. He felt both broken and strong. Olivia was his chance, his ally. They would find the truth, no matter the cost. On the way back, Ethan stopped by TechWave's office to pick up his laptop. He was planning to work from home to be with his kids. The office was quiet. Most people had already left. Mia, his coworker, was sitting at her desk, munching on an apple and staring at her computer screen. Hey, Clark, why are you so pale? She looked up. Everything okay? Yeah, just stuff, Ethan shrugged, grabbing his laptop. The kids are waiting. I have to run. Wait, Mia stood up, walking toward him. Did you talk to Madison, like I advised? Ethan paused. He didn't want to drag Mia into this, but her sincerity was appealing. I tried. She won't talk. It's worse than I thought. Okay, but you know where to find me. She poked him in the shoulder. Don't keep it all to yourself, Clark. He nodded and walked out, feeling the warmth of her words, but his thoughts were elsewhere. In the car, he took out his phone and texted Madison. Where are you? The answer came a minute later. At a meeting. I'll be late. Kiss them. Fucking Groundhog Day. Ethan clutched the phone, fighting the urge to throw it at window. Ethan started the car and drove home to the kids. At home, he made them sandwiches, played a video game with Zach, and helped Chloe draw a dinosaur. Ethan sat in his car in the parking lot of Blue Harbor, a popular business dinner spot in downtown Seattle. Rain pounded the windshield, blurring the city lights. He clutched his phone, checking the time. 8:17 p.m. Thursday. Olivia had texted an hour earlier. Travis has reservations at Blue Harbor for 7:30. Madison is with him. Be careful. Ethan parked in the far corner, where he could see the entrance, but his car was out of sight. He felt like the hero of a pulp mystery, but there was no turning back. After meeting with Olivia on Wednesday, they agreed to move quickly. She used her connections at Tilo's Capital to gain access to Travis's calendar through a no-questions-asked assistant. Ethan, for his part, began stalking Madison, even though it was driving him crazy. Every "I'll be late," she said now sounded like a lie, and her cold stares at home only added fuel to the fire. But he held on for Zach and Chloe. They couldn't get hurt until he knew the truth. Ethan squinted at the restaurant doors. He saw a familiar figure through the glass. Madison, in the dark green dress he'd bought her for their anniversary. She was laughing, flicking her hair, and Travis was standing next to her, tall and in an expensive suit, with that smug smile from the photos. They walked out together, and Travis held her elbow as they walked to his car. Ethan's grip on the steering wheel was so tight his knuckles were white. This did not look like a business meeting. He pulled out his phone and took a few pictures, trying not to shake his hands. The quality was lousy because of the rain, but the faces were recognizable. Ethan texted the photo to Olivia with the caption, "Them at Blue Harbor, together." A minute later, she replied, "Okay, meet me tomorrow at the Pike Street Cafe, 10 a.m. Bring whatever you find." Ethan exhaled, anger mixing with nausea. He wanted to storm into the restaurant, grab Travis by the collar, and demand an explanation. But Olivia was right. Their emotions would be their undoing. They had to be smarter than that. He started the car and drove home to the kids, trying not to think about Madison laughing with another man. The house was quiet. Zach was playing a video game in the living room, and Chloe was asleep upstairs. Ethan had put her to bed before he left, leaving Zach in charge. He tossed his jacket on the coat rack and sat down next to his son. "Dad, where have you been?" Zach didn't look up from the screen where his character was hacking at zombies. "Running errands." Ethan rubbed his neck, feeling tired. "How's Chloe?" "Fine. She wanted you to read to her, but I told her you were busy." Zach shrugged. "Did Mom call?" Ethan shook his head. "No, she's in a meeting." As always, Zach snorted, but there was bitterness in his voice. "Is she even coming home?" "He'll come." Ethan put his hand on his shoulder. "Hey, let's play together. I'll crush you." "Dream on," Zach smiled weakly, handing over the second controller. They played for half an hour, and Ethan tried to laugh, to tease, but his mind was elsewhere. After Zach went to bed, Ethan checked Madison's phone, which she'd left on the kitchen counter, a rare instance of her forgetting to take it. He knew her password, Chloe's birthday. Feeling like a traitor, he unlocked the screen. There were a few unread messages in the messenger, but Ethan immediately opened the chat with Travis. The last message, sent an hour ago. "Silicon Valley is our future. Just a few more steps." Ethan froze, his heart pounding. He scrolled higher. "Meet me at the office tomorrow to discuss the details. You were great at the presentation. We need to be more careful." Each word hit like a hammer. This wasn't just flirting. They were planning something big, and Madison was in it up to her ears. Ethan took screenshots, texted them to himself, and deleted the traces. He put the phone back, feeling his insides boil. Silicon Valley. What the hell? He knew Tylo's capital invested in startups, but this sounded like an escape, like a betrayal not just of him, but of their family. Ethan poured himself a glass of water to calm himself, but his hands were shaking. The next day, Ethan met Olivia at a cafe on Pike Street, a bustling place that smelled of freshly brewed coffee and maple syrup. He arrived early, ordered a black coffee, and sat by the window, watching the people pass by. Olivia walked in promptly at 10, wearing dark jeans and a white blouse, none of the formality of the day before. She looked tired but determined. Ethan, she sat down opposite him, putting her bag on the chair. Show me what you have. He pulled out his phone and opened the photos from Blue Harbor. Here they are. Yesterday, after dinner, doesn't look like work. Olivia looked at the screen, her lips pressing together. Yes, she said quietly. Travis doesn't hold women's elbows in business meetings. That's not all. Ethan opened the screenshots of the messages. I checked her phone. They're talking about Silicon Valley, some moves. This isn't just an affair, Olivia. They're up to something. She read the messages, her expression hardening. Bastard, she muttered. He always dreamed of the big jump. A new fund, new connections. But using Tilo's. Use it. Ethan frowned. Do you think they steal money? I don't know. Olivia leaned back in her chair. But Silicon Valley isn't just a word. There are millions of dollars there. If Travis is planning his own fund, he can draw on Tilo's resources, clients, investors. Ethan squeezed his mug. And Madison helps him. My wife. Olivia looked at him sympathetically. I'm sorry, Ethan. I know how much this hurts. Yeah, right, he smiled bitterly. 12 years of marriage, 2 children, and she with this idiot. They were silent until the waitress brought Olivia a latte. She sipped it, looking out the window. I'm tired too, she said quietly. Travis and I have been married for 8 years. I thought we were a team. Now I'm sitting here, spying on him. Ethan nodded, feeling strangely close. Tell me about him. What kind of person is he? Olivia sighed. Travis is a showman. He can sell himself, an idea, anything. When we met, he was a nobody, just starting out in the venture business. I helped him with PR and built his image. And now, he thinks he can do anything. Sounds like Madison, Ethan shook his head. She was a teacher, you know, loved kids, loved her job. And then these classes, Tilo's, she's like someone else. People change, Olivia looked at him. Or they show who they really are. Ethan nodded, feeling her words sink into his chest. What next? He asked. We know they're dating, we know about their plans, but that's not enough. I'll check his messages. Olivia pulled out her phone. I have access to his work email through the shared account. If he's hiding something, there'll be a trace there. What about you? I'll keep an eye on Madison, Ethan shrugged. She's not as careful as she thinks. Leaves her phone behind, forgets to close her laptop. Okay, Olivia nodded. But Ethan, be careful. If she suspects, she'll destroy you. I know her kind. I can handle it, he said, although he wasn't sure. For the sake of the children. The kids, Olivia smiled weakly. How are they? Ethan paused, remembering last night. Zach's angry, but he's not saying anything. Chloe, she's asking when mom's coming home. I lie and say everything's fine, but they're not stupid. You're a good father, Olivia looked at him. Hold on to them. They're your strength. Thank you, Ethan nodded, feeling the warmth of her words. And you, how are you holding up? Me, she grinned. Coffee, anger, and the habit of controlling everything. But sometimes you just want to scream. Sounds familiar, Ethan laughed, and for the first time in a week, the laughter was genuine. They finished their coffee, agreeing to call each other tomorrow. Olivia promised to send everything she found in Travis's mail, and Ethan promised to keep an eye on Madison. They left the cafe, and the rain had stopped, leaving puddles on the asphalt. Ethan walked Olivia to her car, feeling strangely light. He was no longer alone. At home, Ethan found Madison in the kitchen, a rare occurrence for her to be home during the day. She was chopping vegetables for a salad while Chloe sat nearby, chatting about school. Zach was upstairs, playing a video game. Dad, Chloe jumped up, hugging him. We're making dinner. Mom said it'll be a surprise. Cool, Ethan smiled, but his gaze fell on Madison. She looked her usual self, beautiful, put together, but her eyes avoided his. Didn't know you were home today. I decided to take a break, Madison shrugged, not looking up from the knife. I'm tired of running around. Yeah, Ethan sat at the counter, watching her. How was last night? Was the networking a success? She paused for a second, then continued cutting. Yeah, fine. Met a new startup. Promising. With Travis, Ethan tried to sound casual, but his voice betrayed the tension. Madison looked at him, frowning. Yeah, with Travis and the team. What's with the 1,000th interrogation? Just curious, he shrugged, feeling his insides boil. You're a Telos star now, right? Dad, don't fight. Chloe poked him in the side. Mom promised me pancakes. Nobody's fighting, honey, Madison smiled, but it was a tight smile. Go get Zach. Dinner's almost time. Chloe ran away, and Ethan leaned closer. Madison, we need to talk. It's not too late for a real talk. Not now, she waved, throwing vegetables into a bowl. I'm trying to be home, Ethan. Just give me a day. Ethan sat in his home office, a small room on the second floor with his old desk and a couple of shelves of technical books. His laptop screen glowed in the dim light, showing the video Olivia had taken Saturday night. Madison and Travis hugging in the entryway to the cottage, laughing, their eyes full of something Ethan didn't want to name. He replayed the video over and over, each time feeling the knife in his chest twist deeper. Zach and Chloe were asleep in their rooms, and Madison was in a meeting, as usual. Ethan didn't believe a word she said. After the stakeout at the cottage, he and Olivia had agreed to dig deeper. The video was proof of infidelity, but the Silicon Valley messages Ethan had found on Madison's phone hinted at something bigger. Olivia suspected foul play, and Ethan, with his engineering mind, was determined to figure it out. He opened a folder on his laptop where he kept screenshots of her texts with Travis, photos from the Blue Harbor restaurant, and notes he and Olivia had taken over the past week. But that wasn't enough. He needed hard evidence to figure out what they were up to and how far they'd gone. Ethan rubbed his eyes, feeling tired. It was almost midnight on a Monday, and he should be sleeping, but he hadn't been able to since he'd found those damn TM briefs. He got up to get some water when he heard the front door slam shut. Madison was back. His heart was pounding, but he forced himself to stay in the office. Going downstairs, making a scene, screaming it would be too easy and too stupid. Olivia had warned him, be smarter than them. He turned back to his laptop, deciding he'd check her things later when she was asleep. Half an hour later, the house was quiet. Ethan crept into their bedroom, where Madison was asleep, her back to the wall. Her bag was on the floor, and her laptop was on the nightstand, still turned on. Ethan knew her password, the same one on her phone, Chloe's birthday. He felt like a thief, but it wasn't his fault. She had broken their trust. He took the laptop and went back into the office, closing the door. The screen lit up, showing Madison's desktop. Folders labeled Telos, presentations, personal. Ethan opened his email, scrolling through his inbox. Nothing out of the ordinary work emails, meeting reminders. But in the drafts folder, he noticed an unsubscribed email from 2 days ago. He clicked it, and his blood ran cold. Travis, the letter began, the plan is in place. We can launch a fund in Silicon Valley by the end of the year. Telos's investor network is already on our side. I've convinced 3 key players to invest $10 million. We just need to carefully exit. My exit strategy, I quit in September, You announced the new project in October. Telos won't notice the leak if we do it quietly. Details in the attachment. M. Ethan read the letter 3 times, each word hitting him like a hammer. This wasn't just cheating. Madison and Travis were planning to steal Telos's money, use its connections to fund their own foundation. His wife, the mother of his children, wasn't just unfaithful, she was a criminal. Ethan opened the attachment, a document with spreadsheets listing investor names, amounts, dates. This was their exit strategy, cold and calculating. He clenched his fists, resisting the urge to throw his laptop at the wall. 12 years of marriage, their dreams, their children, none of it meant anything to her. And worse, her actions were casting a shadow over his own startup. He'd won the competition fairly, but if the Telos scandal came to light, his reputation in the industry would be in tatters. Investors don't like people who are associated with scammers, even indirectly. Ethan took screenshots of the email and the document, sent them to himself and Olivia, and then carefully closed the laptop. He walked back into the bedroom, put it back, and lay down on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Madison was breathing evenly, unaware that he knew. Ethan felt his love for her die, replaced by a cold determination. He would not let her ruin their family and his life. On Tuesday morning, Ethan drove Zach and Chloe to school, trying to look casual. Chloe was chatting about her dinosaur project, and Zach was listening to music on his headphones. But Ethan noticed his son giving him worried looks. "Dad, why are you silent?" Zach pulled out one earphone when they stopped at the school. "It's fine," Ethan forced a smile. "Just thinking about work. Are you ready for the math test?" "Yeah, easy as pie," Zach shrugged, but lingered by the car. "Was Mom late again yesterday?" "I was," Ethan nodded, feeling a pang of guilt. "But we're coping, right?" Zach looked at him as if he wanted to say something, but he just nodded and left. Chloe hugged Ethan, kissing him on the cheek. "Dad, don't be sad. I'll draw you a dinosaur." "Waiting, honey," he patted her head, watching her run to the school doors. The children were his anchor, but he hated himself for not being able to protect them from the truth. Not yet. At TechWave, Ethan was distracted. He was sitting in a conference room with Dan and Mia, discussing a new feature for their platform, but his mind was on Madison's email. Dan noticed his state and nudged him. "Clark, where are you?" Dan grinned. "Is the house a mess again?" "Something like that." Ethan waved it off, looking at his laptop. "Family matters." "Tell me," Dan moved closer, "is Madison still a star in her foundation?" "Yeah," Ethan clenched his jaw. "A star." Mia, who was sitting across from him, looked at him carefully. "Ethan, are you sure you're okay? You look like your world has collapsed." "Just tired," he shrugged, but her gaze was too penetrating. "Kids, work, everything at once." "If you need to talk, I'm here," Mia smiled, but didn't press. "Or I can bring coffee." "Thank you," Ethan nodded, feeling the warmth of her words, but he couldn't speak. Not now. After the meeting, he texted Olivia. "Found an email on Madison's laptop. They're planning to steal Telos investors for a new fund. Send it to you." She responded, "I read it. This is serious. Come to the office at 3 p.m. and we'll discuss it." Ethan walked into Olivia's office at 3 o'clock, his nerves on edge. She was sitting at her desk, her laptop open in front of her, a mug of cold tea next to her. Her face was serious, but her eyes were blazing with determination. "Ethan, sit down," she pointed to a chair. "I read the letter. This isn't just an affair. This is a scam." "Yeah," Ethan sat up, clenching his fists. "My wife's a criminal." "Cool, huh?" Olivia shook her head. "It's not just her. Travis is the brains. I checked his email. He wrote to some investors in California promising a new project with a reliable partner. Didn't mention Madison, but the dates match her email." Ethan exhaled, feeling the anger return. "They're using Telos like an ATM. Investors, connections, everything." "Yes," Olivia opened a document on her laptop. "Here's his letter." He's already met with 2 investors behind Telos's back. That's a breach of contract, if not worse. Worse? Ethan frowned. What are you talking about? If they're siphoning assets, it could be a criminal offense. Olivia looked at him. But we need proof. Madison's letter is just the beginning. Ethan nodded, feeling his insides go cold. I'll find more. She leaves her laptop at home so I can dig around. I'll check his calls. Olivia tapped her pen on the table. I have a friend in it. He can get the logs. But Ethan, it's dangerous. If they find out we're digging, let them try. Ethan clenched his jaw. They've already destroyed my family. It can't get any worse. Olivia looked at him, her gaze softening. You're holding up better than I expected. I can't hold on, he smiled bitterly. I just can't stop. For the sake of the children. I understand, she nodded. I don't have children, but I won't let Travis get away with this. He thinks I'm a fool. We'll see who has the last laugh. Ethan smiled weakly. We're a team, right? Yeah, Olivia held out her hand. The vigilante team. He shook her hand, feeling her determination fueling him. They agreed to meet in 2 days, when Olivia had the call logs. Ethan left feeling a strange mix of anger and hope. They were close to the truth, and he wasn't going to back down. At home, Ethan found Madison in the kitchen, cooking dinner, a rare sight in months. Zach and Chloe were sitting at the table, drawing. Ethan paused in the doorway, looking at her. She looked like his Madison, the one he loved, but now he saw only lies. Dad, Chloe jumped up, showing the drawing. This is me, you and Zach, and this is a dinosaur. Cool, sweetie, Ethan hugged her, but his gaze was fixed on Madison. Are you home today? Yeah, she smiled, stirring the sauce. I decided to have a family evening. Do you mind? No, he sat up, watching her. Just unexpected. I promised. Madison looked at him, but her eyes were cold. Is everything okay? It's fine, Ethan forced himself to smile, feeling the words burn in his throat. He knew she was lying. Ethan pushed open the glass door of the rusty anchor, and a bell jingled overhead. The inside smelled of fried potatoes and coffee, and an old jukebox played something from the 80s in the corner. It was almost 10 o'clock, and the place was empty except for a couple of truckers at the counter and a sleepy waitress scrolling through her phone. Ethan chose a table in the far corner, away from the windows. He felt like a spy in a cheesy movie, but after everything he'd learned about Madison and Travis, caution was second nature. Olivia walked in 5 minutes later, wearing a dark jacket and jeans, none of the polish from the night before. She dropped her bag on a chair and sat down opposite him, her face tense but her eyes shining. Ethan, she nodded, taking off her scarf. You look like a zombie. Thanks, he chuckled, rubbing his stubble. You're not on the cover of a magazine either. She smiled faintly, but it quickly faded. I read your screenshots. Madison's letter is dynamite. They really want to clean out Telos. Yeah, Ethan sipped the coffee he'd ordered before she arrived. My wife's a fraud. What a turnaround for family life. The waitress came over, and Olivia ordered tea with lemon. When the girl left, Olivia leaned closer. We know what they're planning, she said quietly. A new fund in Silicon Valley, stolen investors, millions. The question is, what do we do about it? Ethan squeezed his mug, feeling the anger that had been building for a week come out. I want them to pay, he said, looking into her eyes. For everything. For the kids, for my marriage, for them thinking they could just run away. Olivia nodded, her gaze cold but understanding. Me too. Travis built his career on my back. I won't let him walk away with millions and a new woman. Ethan snorted despite the tension. New chick. Sounds like Madison. The waitress brought the tea, and Olivia waited for her to move away. We have the video from the cottage, her letter, my extracts from his mail, she continued. That's enough to make a fuss, but not enough to destroy them. We need a plan. Ethan leaned back in his chair, rubbing his neck. He'd been thinking about it all day, driving Chloe to gymnastics and trying to smile at Zach, who was becoming increasingly quiet. I can get more, he said. Madison's not hiding at home. Her laptop, the cloud, everything is open. If they're texting about money, I'll find it. Okay, Olivia pulled out a notepad and pen. But getting evidence is one thing. How do we use it? If we just go to the police, they'll get away with it. Travis is slippery. He's connected. Ethan frowned, looking into his mug. What do you suggest? She tapped her pen on the pad, her eyes narrowing. I've been in PR for 10 years. I know how to kill a reputation. We can leak everything anonymously to Tilo's investors. Emails, videos, statements. If the investors smell a scam, they'll tear Travis apart. And Madison with him. Ethan nodded, feeling the idea settle in his head. Scandal. That'll finish them off. Not just a scandal, Olivia leaned closer, her voice quieter. I can send it out to the VC chat rooms, anonymously through a fake account. One hint, and they'll start digging. Tilos will order an audit, and everything will come out. Ethan considered it. It was clever, using their own world against them. But something about it felt dirty. Is that legal? He asked. Like leaking their emails? Olivia shrugged. Gray area, we don't hack banks, we just share information. But if you're scared, we can just hand it over to Tilos officially. That's the only time Travis will have time to cover his tracks. No, Ethan clenched his jaw. I'm not afraid. They left me no choice. She looked at him, her gaze assessing. Are you sure? This isn't just a divorce, Ethan. This is war. Once we start, there's no going back. Ethan thought of Zach, silent at dinner, Chloe asking if her mother loved them. He thought of the panties with the initials TM, the video of Madison laughing with Travis, her letter about the millions. I'm sure, he said firmly. They wanted a fresh start. We'll give them an ending. Olivia smiled, but it was a cold smile. Well said. Then here's my plan. I'm preparing a leak. I have contacts in venture chats. I can start rumors so that no one will find the source. You'll get more evidence. Something that proves money was transferred or meetings with investors. I can do more than that, Ethan leaned forward. I'm an engineer. If Travis is writing from a work computer, I can get his messages. Tilos probably has a cloud, and Madison mentioned their system. Give me a few days, I'll find the hole. Olivia raised an eyebrow. You're quite the hacker. Not a hacker, he chuckled. I just know how people screw up passwords. Travis doesn't seem like a geek. I bet his password is something like 1234. She laughed, the sound surprisingly warm in the dark diner. Okay, hacker, but be careful. If Madison catches you on the laptop. She won't catch, Ethan shook his head. She barely notices I'm home. Olivia nodded, her gaze softening. How are you anyway, with the kids, with all this? Ethan sighed, looking at the coffee stains in his mug. This sucks. Zach barely says anything. Chloe tries to cheer me up, but I can tell she's scared. I lie to them and say it's okay, but they're not stupid. You're doing what you can. Olivia touched his hand, her fingers cold. You're a good father. They know that. I hope so, Ethan looked at her. And you, how are you not going crazy? Oh, I'm close, she grinned, but her eyes were serious. I don't have children to hold on to, but I do have anger, and a habit of controlling everything. That's saving me for now. Ethan nodded, feeling their shared pain drawing them closer together. We can do this, right? Yeah, she squeezed his hand and let go. The Avengers team, remember? They finished their coffee, discussing details. Olivia promised to set up a fake account by the end of the week and start dropping hints into the chats. Ethan was supposed to get another email or proof of financial fraud. They agreed to meet on Friday to compare notes. Ethan left the diner, feeling the cold air on his face. The rain had stopped, but the sky was heavy. He sat in his car, looking out at the city lights, and for the first time in a week, he felt in control. He and Olivia were going to fight, and Madison and Travis were going to regret ever playing this game. The next day, Ethan was in the TechWave office, but his mind was elsewhere. He was sitting at his desk, pretending to work on code, but really looking for ways to access the Telos system. Dan, his coworker, looked over his shoulder. "Clark, why are you so focused?" Dan grinned, chewing chips. "Found a new bug?" Something like that. Ethan closed the tab where he was reading about cloud systems. "Just busy." "Yeah, I see." Dan sat on the edge of the table. "Listen, you've been acting like a ghost lately. Is Madison still hanging out at her foundation?" Ethan squeezed the mouse, trying not to fall. "Yeah, she's busy." "Well, give her time," Dan shrugged. "Women are like that when they get caught up in their careers. My sister was like that too, until she burned out." "Maybe," Ethan nodded, but Dan's words only irritated him. This wasn't just a career. This was betrayal, lies, millions. He changed the subject. "What's the news on our release?" Dan started chatting about work, but Ethan was only half listening. His mind was on Madison. She'd had a family night last night, but it had been an act, smiling at the kids and barely looking at him. Ethan knew she was acting to keep him from asking questions, but he already had, and he had the answers. At lunchtime, he met Mia in the cafeteria. She was sitting with a salad and an energy drink, scrolling through something on her phone. "Hey, Clark," she said, looking up. "Have you ever eaten today?" "Yeah," Ethan showed his sandwich. "You're just like my mom." "Someone has to," Mia chuckled. "Seriously, are you okay? You look like the world is falling apart." Ethan paused. Mia was straightforward, and he liked that, but he couldn't tell everything. "It's just, the house is a mess," he said. "Madison, I don't know what's wrong with her." "Oh," Mia put her phone down. "Want some advice? Don't push, but don't be silent either. If she brushes you off, put your foot down. You're not a wimp, Clark." Ethan smiled weakly. "Not a wimp, but it's complicated." "I understand," she nodded. "If anything happens, call me. I can hang out with your kids while you shake her up." "Thank you." Ethan looked at her, feeling warm. Mia was like the little sister he never had. "I'll think about it." At home, Ethan waited for Madison to leave for another meeting. Zach and Chloe were at their grandmother's. Madison's mother sometimes took them overnight to give them a break. Ethan took advantage of the moment and opened her laptop again. He was looking for something specific, a conversation, a file, anything that would confirm the transfer of money. In the Telos folder, he found another document, signed SV_plan. His heart pounded as he opened it. It was a draft of a pitch deck. New fund in Silicon Valley. Founders, Travis Monroe, Madison Clark. There were charts, numbers, names of investors they were planning to lure away from Telos. Ethan felt the blood rush to his head. His name, his wife, his life, it was all part of their game. He saved the file to a thumb drive, sent a copy to Olivia, and closed his laptop. Ethan sat in his home office, lit only by the dim light of a desk lamp. A command prompt flickered on his laptop screen as he ran a script to test for vulnerabilities in Telos Capital's cloud system. It was 2 a.m. on a Wednesday, and the house was asleep. Zach and Chloe in their rooms, Madison in their bedroom, where she'd returned an hour earlier, smelling of wine and someone else's cologne. Ethan gritted his teeth, forcing the image of her smile, the same smile that now belonged to Travis Monroe, to stop. He focused on the code. If Olivia was right, and she and Travis were stealing millions, there would be clues in their emails. And Ethan was going to find them. After meeting at the Rusty Anchor, he and Olivia divided up the tasks. She took on the information warfare, anonymous posts in professional chat rooms where venture capitalists hung out. Ethan, with his engineering skills, would dig up hard evidence emails, files, anything that would prove financial fraud. He knew it wasn't exactly legal, but after Madison's exit strategy letter and the video from the cabin, his conscience was silent. They had destroyed his family. Now he would destroy theirs. Ethan typed another command, testing the passwords he'd pulled from a Tilo's back-end file he'd accessed through an old vulnerability in their cloud. Madison had once mentioned that their department was a weak link, and she'd been right. 20 minutes later, he had access to Travis's folder on the corporate cloud. His heart pounded as he opened the folder labeled SV_2025. Inside were emails sent from Travis's personal account to some California investors. One, dated the day before yesterday, read, "We're ready to launch by November. Madison has convinced 3 people from Tilo's to invest $12 million. We'll start the asset transfer in August. We'll discuss the details in person." Ethan clenched his fists, feeling the anger give way to cold triumph. This was it, the proof. He copied the emails to a flash drive, sent them to Olivia via encrypted messenger, and closed the laptop. He was tired, but he couldn't sleep. Ethan went down to the kitchen, poured himself some water, and sat at the counter, looking out the window at the dark bay. Somewhere out there, in their perfect life, Travis and Madison were making plans, unaware that their castle was about to collapse. Ethan smiled, but it was a bitter smile. He had become an avenger, and it scared him as much as it pleased him. Thursday morning, Ethan drove Zach and Chloe to school, trying to keep a straight face. Chloe was chatting about her new girlfriend. Zach was silent, his head buried in his phone. Ethan noticed how quiet his son had become, and it cut him. He wanted to say something encouraging, but the words felt empty. Instead, he turned on the radio, and they drove to pop music, each lost in their own thoughts. "Dad, are you picking up today?" Chloe looked at him as they pulled up to the school. "Yeah, honey," Ethan patted her head. "After gymnastics, as usual." "Will Mom be there?" Her voice was cautious. Ethan swallowed, forcing a smile. "I don't know, she's busy, but I'll be there, I promise." Chloe nodded, but her eyes were sad. Zach got out of the car without a word, saying, "Bye, Dad." Ethan watched them walk to school, feeling like the worst father in the world. He couldn't protect them from the truth, but he could make Madison pay for their pain. At TechWave, Ethan was on autopilot. He was sitting in a conference room with Dan and Mia, discussing a new feature release, but his mind was on Travis's emails. Dan was cracking jokes, as usual, but Mia noticed his detachment. "Clark, where have you been?" She poked him with her pen as Dan went out to get coffee. "Seriously, you're like a ghost." Ethan sighed, leaning back in his chair. "The house is a mess, Mia. I don't want to bother you." "Loading is my thing," she chuckled, but her eyes were serious. "Madison, or something else?" "Madison," he looked at her, feeling like he couldn't lie. I don't know who she is now." Mia frowned, putting her pen down. "Oh, Ethan, if she pisses you off, tell her. Straight up, no snot, you're not a wimp." "Not a wimp," he smiled bitterly, "but it's not that simple." "I understand," she nodded. "But if anything happens, I'm here. I can even take your children if you need to put pressure on her." "Thank you." Ethan looked at her, feeling warm. Mia was like a breath of fresh air in this nightmare. "I can handle it." "You're cool, Clark." She poked him in the shoulder. "Don't forget." He nodded, turning back to his laptop, but his mind was elsewhere. Olivia had texted him that morning. "Got the emails. They're a bomb. Starting posts today. Call at 6 p.m. Ethan knew their plan was in motion, and it was as terrifying as it was inspiring. At 6 p.m., Ethan called Olivia over secure messaging. He was sitting in his car in the parking lot of the gym where Chloe worked out. Olivia was in her office, her face on the phone screen looking tired but happy. "Ethan, I did it," she said, her voice full of cold excitement. An anonymous post in 2VC chat rooms, a reference to unethical behavior at Tilo's, plus a piece of Travis's email, no names. They're buzzing like a hive already. Ethan squeezed the phone, feeling his pulse quicken. "What do they write?" "Questions for now," Olivia smiled. "Someone is demanding an audit of Tilo's finances. One investor, a big shot, wrote that he wants an audit. This is just the beginning." "Shit," Ethan exhaled, feeling a mixture of fear and triumph. "You're a genius." "Not a genius, just evil," she snorted. "Your letters are the key. They'll prove Travis is stealing. But we need more noise. I'll throw in another post tomorrow with a hint at Madison. No name, but something to make her nervous." Ethan nodded, looking at the gym where Chloe was doing somersaults. "I found another file," he said. "Their fund presentation. It's all there. Names of investors, amounts. I sent it to you." "Great," Olivia said, opening her laptop, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "That's what we need. We'll pass it on through a front man. I have a guy who works in the venture press. He'll leak it to Telos's lead investor as an anonymous source." "What if they find us?" Ethan frowned. "Travis isn't stupid." "They won't figure it out." Olivia shook her head. "I know how to cover my tracks. And you don't leave any tracks in their system. You're a hacker." "Not a hacker," Ethan chuckled, but her words gave him confidence. "Okay, I'll be careful. What's next?" "We're waiting," she looked at him. "If the investors bite, they'll order an audit. Travis and Madison will start to panic. And then we'll throw in the video." Ethan nodded, feeling the plan come to life. "They're not getting away with this." "They won't," Olivia smiled, but it was a predatory smile. "They thought we were pawns. Let's see how they like being targets." They ended the call, and Ethan got out of the car to pick up Chloe. She ran out of the room, flushed, her pigtails bouncing off her shoulders. "Dad, I did a cartwheel with no hands," she yelled, running toward him. "Well done, champion." Ethan picked her up, hugging her. Her joy was like a light in the darkness, but he knew that light was under threat. He put her in the car, and they drove home, where Zach was already waiting, lying on the couch with a comic book. "Dad, is Mom home?" Zach looked at him as they entered. "No," Ethan shook his head, feeling a pang of guilt. "She's at work." "Same as always," Zach muttered, returning to his comic. Ethan was about to say something, but his phone vibrated. A text from Olivia. "Investor took the bait. I need an audit. We got them." Ethan clutched the phone, feeling his heart beat faster. The scandal had begun, and Travis was under attack. He looked at Zach, at Chloe, who was drawing a dinosaur at her desk, and swore he would protect them. At all costs. Ethan stood by the living room window, looking out at the gray bay, rippled with a light rain. The house was quiet, save for the ticking of the kitchen clock and the muffled sound of a video game coming from Zach's room. Chloe was doodling at the dining room table, humming something about dinosaurs. It was 5 p.m. on a Wednesday, and Ethan was waiting for Madison. Olivia had called an hour ago with news that had made his heart pound. An audit of Tylo's capital had confirmed financial irregularities. Travis Monroe had been suspended, and Madison, his closest employee, had been fired. Their Silicon Valley dreams were shattered, and Ethan knew she would soon be home, broken but still a liar. He clutched the phone in his pocket, where a text from Olivia had tucked in. "They're screwed. Travis is yelling at the lawyers. Madison left an hour ago. Get ready." Ethan was ready. The week since their plan at the Rusty Anchor had been a roller coaster. Olivia had started anonymous posts in venture chat rooms. Ethan had gotten Travis's emails, and their evidence, passed through a fake journalist, had done its job. Telos's investors had demanded an audit, and the truth had come out like oil on water. But there was no joy in winning. Ethan looked at Chloe's drawing of a dinosaur with a stick figure family and felt nothing but emptiness. He'd won the battle, but the family was still falling apart. The door slammed, and Ethan turned around. Madison walked in, dropping her bag on the floor. Her face was pale, her hair was disheveled, her suit was wrinkled. She looked like she hadn't slept in a week. Chloe jumped up, rushing to her side. "Mom," Chloe hugged her legs. "You're home. Look, I drew us." Madison forced a smile as she crouched down next to her daughter. "That's great, honey." Her voice shook. "It's really beautiful." Ethan watched silently, arms crossed. Madison looked up, and their gazes met. There was something new in her eyes, fear, desperation, but he felt no pity, only coldness. "Chloe, go to Zach." Ethan said, not taking his eyes off Madison. I need to talk to my mom. But I want to be with Mom, Chloe frowned, clinging to Madison. Please, honey, Madison stroked her head. Go, I'll be there soon. Chloe reluctantly left, casting a worried glance. Ethan waited until her footsteps faded away and then turned to Madison. What happened? He asked, even though he knew the answer. Madison stood up, straightening her jacket. I got fired, she said quietly, looking at the floor. Tilos, they found some problems. Said I was involved. Problems? Ethan raised an eyebrow, his voice even but his insides seething. Like what? Financially, she pressed her lips together, her hands shaking. They think that Travis and I stole something. That's crazy, Ethan. I didn't do anything. Nothing. He stepped closer, feeling the anger escaping. And the letters, the presentations, Silicon Valley, Madison, is that nonsense too? Her eyes widened, her face paled even more. Where did you? She trailed off, stepping back. Were you following me? And you thought I was blind? Ethan raised his voice, but then lowered it, remembering the children. I found panties, Madison, with the initials TM in our laundry room, and I saw you at the cottage. You and your charismatic boss. Madison buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking. Ethan, please, her voice broke. It's not what you think. I'm confused. The job, the pressure, Travis. He promised me a future. The future, Ethan snorted, the words cutting into his throat. You left us for him. For money. Have you ever thought about Zach? About Chloe? Of course I did. She looked up, her eyes full of tears. I wanted the best for them. Tilos was my chance, Ethan. You don't understand what it's like to just be a teacher when you can do more. You were our mother. He looked at her, and his voice turned cold. That was enough. But you chose him. Madison sobbed, stepping towards him. Please, Ethan, understand me. I was wrong, I know. But I didn't want to lose you. We can fix this. He stepped back, shaking his head. Fix it. You lied to me, Madison. You planned to steal millions with Travis. I know everything. She froze, her tears stopping as if someone had turned off a faucet. What have you done? She whispered, her voice full of horror. What you deserve. Ethan turned and walked toward the stairs. I don't want to see you. Pack your things. Ethan, she screamed, grabbing his arm. Don't do this. For the kids, please. I beg you, give me a chance. He pulled his hand away, looking down at her. Her face, once beloved, was now alien. You ruined everything yourself, he said quietly, and walked away, leaving her crying in the living room. Ethan walked up to his office, closed the door, and sat at his desk, clutching his head in his hands. His heart was pounding, but there were no tears. He had done what he had to. Madison had lost everything: her job, her reputation, their family. But the victory was bittersweet. He thought of Zach, of Chloe, who would soon find out that their world had changed forever. On Thursday morning, Ethan woke up on the living room couch. Madison had left during the night, leaving a note in the kitchen. I need some time. Talk later. Kiss the kids. Ethan balled up the paper and threw it in the trash. He made the kids breakfast cereal for Chloe, toast for Zach, and tried to look cheerful, but they noticed. Dad, where's Mom? Chloe looked at him, holding the spoon. She cried yesterday. Ethan swallowed, choosing his words. Mom, she's having problems at work, honey. She's gone away for a couple of days to sort it out. Will she come back? Zach looked up, his voice sharp. Or will she be busy again? I don't know, son. Ethan put a hand on his shoulder. But we're together, right? We can do this. Zach nodded, but his eyes were hard. Chloe sniffled, and Ethan pulled her into a hug, kissing the top of her head. Hey, champ, let's finish this before we get to school. He drove them, trying to be funny, but inside he was hurting. The children weren't supposed to suffer, but they were already victims. Ethan vowed to protect them, even if it meant becoming a single father. He was like a zombie in the TechWave office. Dan tried to get him to talk, but Ethan brushed him off. Mia, as always, noticed more. Ethan, you look like you were run over by a truck. She sat down next to him in the cafeteria, holding her coffee. What happened? Madison, he sighed, looking at his sandwich. She's worse than I thought. Oh, Mia frowned. Do you want me to come over? Chat with the kids, give you a break? Thank you. Ethan looked at her, feeling warm. Maybe later. For now, I'll be on my own. You're cool, Clark, she smiled. But don't carry everything alone. Call me if anything happens. He nodded, turning back to work, but his mind was elsewhere. Olivia texted at lunch. Travis is officially fired. Madison too. Press scandal. We did it. Ethan replied, yes, we did, but it's not any easier. She called an hour later, and he went out into the parking lot to talk. Ethan, how are you? Her voice was soft but tired. It sucks. He leaned against the car. Madison left. She cried, asked me to understand. But I can't. I understand, Olivia sighed. Travis called, screaming that I ruined everything. He doesn't even know it was us, but he's already looking for someone to blame. Let him look, Ethan grinned, but without joy. We got them. Yeah, she paused. But Ethan, this is not the end. They can try to get out of it. Be on your guard. I will. He looked at the sky, where the rain had turned to sun. Thank you, Olivia. I couldn't have done it without you. The avenging team, she chuckled. Get some rest, Ethan. You've earned it. He hung up, feeling a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. The scandal had done its job, but the family was broken. Ethan came home with the kids, and they spent the evening eating pizza and watching cartoons. Chloe fell asleep on his shoulder. Zach stared at the screen in silence. Ethan hugged them, knowing that hard days were ahead. Ethan sat at the kitchen table, looking at the stack of papers his lawyer had brought him. The divorce papers were on top. His signature felt like someone else's. He'd signed them in the lawyer's office today, feeling something inside him tearing. 12 years of marriage to Madison were over, and even though Ethan knew it was the only way out, the pain still lingered. Not for her, but for Zach and Chloe, who were playing in the living room, unaware that their lives were about to change. It had been a week since Madison had left, leaving a note that read, I need time. Talk later. Kiss the kids. She had called a couple times, asking to meet, but Ethan had refused. After the TM underwear, the video from the cottage, and her letter about stealing millions from Tilo's capital, he couldn't look her in the eye. The scandal he and Olivia had unleashed had worked. Travis was fired, Madison was fired, their plans for Silicon Valley were ruined. But the victory was hollow. Ethan only wanted to protect the kids and start over. He put the papers away in the drawer and looked at his watch. 6 o'clock on a Tuesday. Zach and Chloe deserved the truth, and he was going to tell them tonight, before dinner. Not about the cheating or the scam that was too much for them, but about the divorce, about why his mother no longer lived at home. Ethan took a breath, feeling his throat tighten. He wasn't ready, but he couldn't wait any longer. Zach, Chloe, he called, coming into the living room. Come here, we need to talk. Zach, who was sitting on the couch with a tablet, looked up. What, Dad? I'm almost done with the level. Put it aside, son, Ethan smiled, trying to hide the tension. This is important. Chloe, who had been playing with plastic dinosaurs on the floor, jumped up. Is this about Mom? Her voice was quiet, her eyes wary. Ethan nodded, sitting down on the couch. Yes, honey. Sit down, both of you. Zach reluctantly put the tablet down and sat down, crossing his arms. Chloe climbed into Ethan's lap, clutching her beloved T-Rex. He wrapped his arms around her, feeling the warmth of her body, and looked at Zach, who was fiddling with the hem of his shirt, avoiding his gaze. Guys, Ethan began, choosing his words carefully. You know Mom has been really busy lately. And you've seen that she and I aren't getting along very well. She's always at work, Zach muttered, looking at the floor. She doesn't care about us. Ethan shook his head, squeezing his son's shoulder. It's not like that, Zach. Mom loves you. But she made mistakes. Not with you, with work, with me. And I decided it was better for us to live apart. Chloe looked up, her eyes shining. Mom won't be home, ever? Ethan swallowed, fighting the lump in his throat. Not never, honey. You'll see her, but she won't live with us. Mom and I are getting a divorce. Divorce? Zach looked at him, his voice sharp. Is it like in the movies? You're not married anymore? Yes, Ethan nodded, looking him in the eye. I can't be with her, Zach. She wasn't honest with us, and I want our home to be peaceful, for you to be happy. Chloe sniffled, pressing herself against him. But I want Mom. She promised pancakes. I know, honey. Ethan kissed the top of her head, feeling his heart squeeze. And she loves you, she really does. But sometimes adults can't live together. You'll see her, I promise. Zach clenched his fists, his face turning red. Why is she like this? He asked, his voice shaking. Why doesn't she come home? Ethan paused, choosing his words. He wanted to be honest, but not hurt them further. Mom, she messed up, son. She wanted to make a career, but she chose the wrong path, and it hurt us. I can't forgive her, but that doesn't mean she doesn't love you. She doesn't call. Zach turned away, his voice growing quieter. She doesn't even write. Ethan hugged him, feeling his son tense, but not pulling away. I know it hurts, he said quietly, but I'm here, and I'm not leaving. We'll always be a family, even if Mom and Dad are apart. Chloe sobbed, hugging his neck. You're not going to leave, Dad? Never, Ethan looked at her, wiping away her tears. You're my team, okay? We'll get through this. Zach nodded, wiping his face with his sleeve. Can I go to my room? He asked quietly. Of course, son, Ethan patted his head. If you want to talk, I'm here. Zach left, and Chloe stayed, clinging to Ethan. Dad, can you tell me about the dinosaur? She asked, her voice sleepy. Of course, my dear, he smiled, settling her more comfortably. Which one? A Tyrannosaurus? She nodded, and Ethan began to tell her about the T-Rex hunting until her eyes closed. He carried her to bed, covered her with the blankets, and walked back into the living room, feeling the fatigue creeping up on him. It had been a hard conversation, but an honest one. The kids were stronger than he thought, but their pain was killing him. He had done the right thing by telling the truth, but it hadn't made it any easier. The next day, Ethan met Olivia at a cafe on Pike Street, where they were already discussing the evidence. She was sitting by the window with a latte, her face tired but her eyes shining with relief. Ethan ordered a black coffee and sat down across from her. You look like you haven't slept in a week. Olivia raised an eyebrow, sipping her coffee. Go higher, Ethan chuckled, rubbing his stubble. I told the kids yesterday about the divorce. Oh, Olivia put her mug down, her gaze softening. How are they? They're holding up, he sighed, looking out the window at the people hurrying under umbrellas. Zach's angry, but he's keeping quiet. Chloe wants her mom. I told them the truth, that Madison was confused, but not everything. They don't know about the dirt. You did the right thing, Olivia looked at him. Honesty is better than lies. They'll understand in time. I hope so, Ethan shrugged, feeling heavy. And you? How are things with Travis? Filed for divorce, Olivia smiled, but there was bitterness in her eyes. He called, screaming that I ruined everything. He doesn't know that it was us, but he's looking for someone to blame. His career is in the trash, and I hardly feel sorry for it. Ethan nodded, feeling strangely relieved. We got them, huh? Of course, she raised her mug as if for a toast. A team of Avengers. I thought it would be easier, but empty. I understand. Ethan looked at her, feeling warmth. Olivia wasn't just an ally. She had become a friend, someone who saw his pain and didn't turn away. Thank you, Olivia. Without you, I probably would have broken down. And I would drink wine and cry, she chuckled, but her gaze was warm. "We work well together, Ethan." "That's true," he smiled, sincerely for the first time in a week. "What's next? A new plan?" "Live," Olivia shrugged, sipping her coffee. "I'm starting my own agency without Travis. You with the kids, with the startup. We've weathered the storm. Now we have to build." Ethan nodded, feeling her words give him hope. To live. It sounded simple, but after all, it felt like a challenge. But looking at Olivia, he believed he could do it. They finished their coffee, chatting about small things, her plans for a new apartment, his idea to take the kids camping. Ethan found himself enjoying her laughter, her directness, not as a romance, but as a friendship he had been missing. That evening, Ethan picked up Zach and Chloe from school. They were quieter, but Chloe showed him a new drawing of a dinosaur with his dad and brother. Zach even joked that his dad looked like a stegosaurus. Ethan laughed, feeling the warmth return. He made macaroni and cheese, their favorite, and they ate while talking about school. Madison wasn't mentioned, but her absence was like a shadow. Before bed, Ethan went to see Zach. His son was watching a video on his tablet, lying on the bed. "Hey, champ," Ethan sat down next to him. "Are you okay?" "Normal," Zach shrugged, but looked at him. "Dad, is it just the three of us now?" "Not always," Ethan squeezed his hand. "Mom will see you, but I'll always be here, I promise." Zach nodded, smiling weakly. "Okay." Ethan walked over to Chloe, who was lying with a stuffed dinosaur. "Dad, tell me about the dinosaur," she asked sleepily. He sat there, telling her about the velociraptor until she fell asleep. Looking at her face, Ethan felt like he had done the right thing. Ethan sat on the porch, holding a cold beer. The sun was setting over Puget Sound, streaking the water with orange and pink. A light breeze carried the smell of salt and grass, and from the yard he could hear Zach and Chloe laughing. They were chasing each other with water pistols, squealing when the spray hit their targets. Chloe, soaking wet, was screaming, "Zach, you're a cheater." Zach laughed, dodging her attack. Ethan watched them, his lips curling into an involuntary smile. For the first time in months, the house felt alive again. It had been a month and a half since he'd filed for divorce. Madison had disappeared from their lives, moving in with her sister in Portland. She'd called the kids once a week, promising to visit, but hadn't shown up yet. Ethan hadn't pushed, he'd held the door open for Zach and Chloe, but he didn't want to see her. The pain of betrayal, the TM underwear, the video from the cottage, her emails about stealing millions from Tilo's capital was still there, but it was quieter now, like an old scar. The scandal he and Olivia had caused had ruined Madison and Travis's careers, but Ethan hadn't celebrated. His victory was in his kids, in their laughter, in their trust. He sipped his beer, feeling the cool air soothe him. The last few weeks had been tough, but they were making it. Zach was more talkative, even cracking jokes like he used to. Chloe drew dinosaurs and asked Ethan to read to her before bed. They went hiking, ate ice cream, and played soccer. Ethan threw everything he had into them and his startup, which was suddenly bringing in its first contracts. Life wasn't back to normal, it was different, but there was hope in that newness. His phone vibrated on the wooden table. A message from Olivia. "Hey, Vigilante, my agency opening is Friday, 6 p.m. Bring the kids, there's pizza. No excuses." Ethan smiled as he typed back, "We will. Pizza without anchovies, okay?" She responded with an eyeball emoji and, "Deal. Waiting." Ethan put his phone down, looking out over the bay. Olivia was the unexpected gift of this storm. 6 weeks ago, they'd been allies, united by Madison and Travis's betrayal. Now she was a friend, someone he could talk to about pain, about children, about the future, without fear of judgment. Her candor, her laughter, her strength were inspiring. Ethan hadn't considered romance. It was too soon, too painful, but her presence in his life was a beacon in the darkness. "Dad," Chloe ran to the porch, wet and giggling. "Zach spilled it all over me. Tell him he's a cheater." Ethan laughed, setting the bottle down on the table. "Zach, don't cheat. Let your sister win it back." She started it, Zach shouted from the yard, but his voice was full of amusement. He ran up, holding the gun, and sprayed Chloe again. She screamed, running after him. Ethan looked at them, a warmth in his chest. They were his world. Everything he had gone through, the pain, the anger, the divorce had been for them. He remembered sitting in the laundromat 3 months ago, holding someone else's underwear, his life falling apart. He hadn't thought he could handle it. Now he knew he was stronger than he thought. The storm had passed, and he was still standing. "Hey, champions!" Ethan stood up, clapping his hands. "Who wants hot dogs? Time to start a fire." "Me?" Chloe jumped up, dropping the gun. "Can I have ketchup?" "And with mustard." Zach ran up, shaking off his wet t-shirt. "Dad, are you going to fry it?" "Yeah," Ethan smiled, heading for the barbecue in the yard. "But you're helping." "Zach, get some firewood." "Chloe, ketchup and buns." They bustled about, and Ethan began to build a fire, feeling the heat of the flames warm his hands. Zach brought in more wood, and Chloe set out the plates, humming her dinosaur song. Ethan watched them, his heart beating steadily. This was their new rhythm, not perfect, but real. Later, as they were eating hot dogs by the fire, Zach suddenly asked, "Dad, are we going to do this forever? Just the three of us?" Ethan put his plate down, looking at his son. "Not always, Zach. Mom will see you when she can, and we'll have friends like Olivia. But we're a team, and that's what matters." "Olivia's cool," Chloe smiled, wiping ketchup off her chin. "She promised to show me her office." "And she will," Ethan patted her head. "We'll go to her party on Friday." "Cool," Zach nodded, munching on a hot dog. "She's not like Mom, is she?" Ethan paused, feeling a stab of pain. "No, son. She's different, but she's our friend." Zach nodded, looking into the fire, and Ethan could tell that his son was accepting the new reality. Chloe yawned, leaning into his shoulder, and he wrapped his arms around her, feeling her warmth soothing him. They sat like that until the sun sank below the horizon, leaving the sky a deep blue. Ethan looked out over the bay, the thought running through his head, "The storm has passed. I'm still standing." He carried Chloe to bed, covered her with a blanket, and then went to Zach. His son was reading a comic book, lying on the bed. "Hey, champ," Ethan sat down next to him. "Are you okay?" "It's fine," Zach shrugged, but looked at him. "Dad, are you sad about Mom?" Ethan sighed, choosing his words. "Sometimes, but I'm happy I have you. That's more important." Zach nodded, smiling weakly. "You're cool, Dad." "You too," Ethan patted his head. "Go to sleep, you have school tomorrow." He walked out, feeling the warmth of his son's words in his chest. In the living room, he poured another beer and sat on the porch, looking at the stars. His phone buzzed again, a text from Mia, his colleague. "Clark, are you alive? Presentation tomorrow, don't screw this up." Ethan chuckled, replying, "Alive. Won't screw this up. Thanks." Mia was another ray of light. Her encouragement, her jokes, kept him going. Ethan leaned back in his chair, listening to the sound of the waves. He thought about his journey, from the pain of betrayal when he found Travis's underwear to the strength he found protecting his children. Olivia, Mia, Zach, Chloe, they were his team. He didn't know what the future would bring, but for the first time in months, he was ready for a new challenge. His family was his priority, and he would not let them down. Many of you, my dears, have probably wondered, how did those ill-fated black silk panties with the initials TM end up in Ethan's washing machine? And only the strongest of you who listen to the end will know the truth. The story is, of course, dramatic, but this small piece of the puzzle deserves its own explanation. Spoiler: everything, as in life, is a mixture of human carelessness, chance, and a pinch of impudence. It all started a couple of weeks before the fatal discovery, when Madison and Travis, carried away by their plans and romance, began to lose their caution. Their meetings often took place at a cottage that Travis rented for the weekend, supposedly for work retreats. In reality, it was their secret place where they discussed not only Silicon Valley, but also their personal affairs. On one of those evenings, after yet another meeting, Travis, as usual, was in his element, charismatic, self-confident, and, alas, not very attentive to detail. Madison, returning home late, often took a bag with her things, a gym uniform, documents, sometimes even a change of clothes. That evening, Travis, in a rush to get ready, threw his things into her bag, thinking he would sort them out later. Among them were those same silk boxers with the initials TM embroidered on them, a gift from some business associate, which he wore to feel like a million. Madison, tired and without checking the contents of the bag, simply threw it into the trunk of his car. At home, in the usual bustle, she emptied the contents of the bag into the laundry basket without even looking at the clothes. It had been another chaotic evening for her. Kids, dinner, trying to avoid Ethan's questions. The bag was empty, and Travis's boxers were mixed in with Zach's t-shirts, Chloe's dresses, and Ethan's shirts. No one noticed how this little detail, like a time bomb, was waiting for its time in the laundry room. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared